Hi, good morning. How are you? Today I was thinking of discussing ultimate reality as being non-dual. Before I start, I want to thank you for supporting You Are the Universe, Discovering Your Cosmic Self and Why It Matters. My book with Menas Kafatos, cosmologist and scientist and climate change expert and quantum physicist. And I also want to let you know that this book will be out in about 2 weeks. On January 30th, The Healing Self, a revolutionary new plan to supercharge your immunity and stay well for life, with Rudy Tanzi, who is director of the genetics lab and director of aging research at Mass General Hospital and professor of neurology at Harvard University. Rishikesh Dixit, namaste. Thank you for agreeing that reality is non-dual. Okay, so let's, before we discuss that, let's also just for me to remind you, let me remind you, Safi Khan, today is my birthday. Happy birthday, Safi. Happy birthday. Interesting human construct based on identity as a biological organism. Thank you, Aurora, for the new book. So I'm going to continue right now with what I had started out to say. And before I even go there, just want to remind you that you can please send me your questions and your comments and your insights to the following email address, which is info@jayo.com. You can also download the app Jayo, which is a platform for all of us to engage in with curated content on everything from love, relationships, and well-being in all its components: sleep, meditation, rest, yoga, breathing exercises, nutrition, grounding, and all the great pillars of well-being. So you can download the app, and also you can go to jayo.com and post your story, which should include your insights, your learnings, your revelations, your insights. Create a discussion group around your story and let other people share their stories, because the world is our collective story, and the world is as we are. So we need to move in the direction of a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. So I would love to learn your stories as well. Masood, thank you. Namaste. Okay, so now let's talk about non-duality. Non-duality. But before we talk about non-duality, let us speak about the current schools on what physical reality is. So the first school on what reality is exactly what I just said, the physicalist point of view, that the world is material, made of matter, and therefore physical. That the world is made of physical objects like this. This is an inanimate physical object, as is this. This is an animate physical object. So, when we learn about the physical world, we start with, most people will remember lessons in chemistry, and they may also remember that chemistry was either organic chemistry, which dealt with the chemicals and their behavior as atoms and molecules in biological organisms, and then inorganic chemistry, which pertain to the behavior of atoms and molecules as rocks or as geology, what we call the geosphere and the biosphere. So organic chemistry or chemistry in general is also based on physics. Physics is of two types: classical physics, which is also referred to as Newtonian physics, which deals with the behavior of physical objects and their motion. And so this is the great contribution of Newton. But then we have another type of physics which is referred to as quantum physics. And of course we have theories of relativity. All of these are, by the way, based on physical reality as the fundamental reality. The theory of relativity has to do with the speed of light as a constant for all frames of reference. The theory of relativity also, as everyone knows, who is familiar even with a little bit of that theory, is based on matter and energy being equivalent. So, yes, somebody asked, is energy material? And answer is yes, energy is considered to be material. The famous equation, E is equal to mc squared. So energy is considered material. When we go into quantum physics, then we end up with a few conundrums, because matter is not only subatomic particles, which are made of smaller subatomic particles, but ultimately, as we go deeper and deeper into the nature of matter, we end up with waves of probability. And these waves of probability exist in mathematical space, defined by mathematicians as Hilbert space, a multi-dimensional, infinite space of probabilities that houses what is called the wave function. And the wave function is originally described by Schrödinger, a great physicist. Basically, the wave function describes the statistical likelihood of space-time events, referred to as particles, upon measurement. But the waves of probability are, in fact, non-material. So as we look at the physical model of reality, we see that it does fall apart. The physical model falls apart because matter is constituted by waves of possibility or potentiality, which are not material. Okay, so therefore I don't believe in the physicalist ontology. Now I have to say that the physicalist ontology means the nature of being, the nature of existence. So if your ontological primitive, fundamental nature of reality is physical, then you have a problem, because this is, can I watch this without the grade school chat? I don't know, but you can try. So in any case, matter turns out to be non-material. And yet physicalist ontology is very useful because all of science, current science, is based on it. And we know that science works. We know that because of this understanding of reality as being physical, we can manipulate what we call the laws of nature, which are regularities of experience, and ultimately we can create everything from gadgets to technology to jet planes to intergalactic probes to the internet and this technology that we are using right now to to have this experience. Okay, so the physicalist scientific point of view is very useful. Is it fundamental truth? And what I'm saying is, no, it is not fundamental truth. Okay, so that's the first worldview. The second worldview is referred to as the idealist worldview. In the West, this idealist worldview is attributed to Bishop Berkeley, who was an idealist. But so was Plato, and so were many philosophers, both East and West, that say reality is mental, that the world that we call physical is experienced by the mind. And if you might remember a famous conversation between an idealist and a physicalist. I think the physicalist was Samuel Johnson, who kicked a rock and said, "I refute you thus," meaning that if you think that the world is mental, then try hitting a tree or being hit by a rock or being hit by a train, and if you think reality is all mental, then you will basically die and step in front of a train or a bus or hit by a rock. So what do you say to that? And the answer to that is that the rock is an experience, the body is an experience, and the pain is an experience. And they're all ultimately made of the same stuff. But in any case, the dualist worldview has been very, very popular, which says there's mind and there's matter, and the idealist worldview says that all that we call matter exists only in the mind. Okay, so that's the second worldview. Then there's a third worldview, and that has become very recently very popular. It's called the Pan Psychist Worldview. Some of you may or may not have watched my debate with the eminent militant atheist and biologist, evolutionary biologist, Richard Dawkins. And I was quoting Freeman Dyson in my debate with him in Mexico. And he screamed at me and he said, Freeman Dyson could never have said that. If he did, he's wrong, but he probably never said that, and he should sue you. So, of course, I wrote an email to Freeman Dyson, the eminent Princeton physicist, originally from England, and his response was very elegant. He said, yes, Aurora remembers. So actually I wrote to Freeman Dyson, and he wrote back. Ramanand Dixit also watched it. Okay, so wrote back, and Freeman Dyson said had a very interesting response. He said, 3 riddles have puzzled me all my life. The first is the unpredictable movement of atoms, which is very interesting, right? Atoms, they move unpredictably. He didn't say random movement of atoms. Unpredictable, which means unpredictable to the observer, not inherently random. So he said that the unpredictable movement of atoms, number one. Number two, a universe fine-tuned for mind and life. Why is the universe so fine-tuned for mind and life? And number 3, the nature of our own consciousness. And he said, I do not know the answers to these riddles, but I think they are connected. So, of course, I shared the email with Richard Dawkins, who dismissed it. He was obviously not familiar with the Pan Psychist view. But the Pan Psychist view, which, by the way, is not the view that I hold, but the Pan Psychist view says that all matter has a little bit of consciousness. From atoms to molecules to galaxies to biological organisms to rocks, everything has its share of consciousness. And this view has become very popular recently. So if you look at the writings of Tegmark from MIT, a very eminent physicist, mathematician, originally from Sweden. He says consciousness is organized matter. Of course, I asked him, why not the opposite? Why isn't matter organized consciousness? And he never responded. Aurora Carlson just said Pan Psychism is a stage of development and understanding of reality. So be it. But Pan Psychism has become very popular recently. Richard Dawkins, I remember in some article or tweet, dismissed it very arrogantly as well, as he dismissed my quote from Freeman Dyson. Okay, so now what have we discussed so far? We have discussed the physicalist worldview, which doesn't hold true, even though it's useful for creating technology. We've discussed the idealist worldview, going back all the way to Bishop Berkeley and Plato and many Eastern and Western philosophers. The idealist worldview also might be considered dualistic because what's his name? Around the time of Newton, Descartes. Descartes was a popular dualist who said there is mind and there is matter, and these are two different things. So dualism is an offspring of idealism as well. But nevertheless, you can say Descartes was a dualist, and many people are still dualists. Okay, Descartes' kind of description of dualism was very convenient. Scientists could take care of what is called matter, and the priests could take care of the mental and spiritual world. So it was politically convenient and also in many ways satisfying. The mental world is the world of images, thoughts, emotions, and the physical world is the world of atoms and molecules. Except the dualistic worldview does not explain simple things like how do mind and matter interact. So if I lift my arm up, that starts with a thought which is immaterial and ends up with a physical response, electrochemicals, electricity, action potentials, movement of muscles. And furthermore, how does matter create experience of the mind? How the two interact, that is very, very difficult to explain. In fact, it cannot be explained. So the dualist worldview also does not hold matter. I was going to say hold water, hold matter, whatever. The dualist worldview doesn't work. It also violates some of the laws of thermodynamics, etc., the law of conservation of energy, and so on. So how do the two interact? It's unexplainable. And then I've discussed the Pan Psychist view, which is, I believe, a cop-out because basically doesn't explain anything. Okay, so now we are left with the final world, which is the worldview that I was going to talk about, and I've already taken 19 minutes of the construct we call time. So that is the non-dual understanding of reality. Very important, because unless we understand all reality is constituted as an expression of the same non-material, non-stuff, then we will be bamboozled by our constructs, and that ultimately results in all the problems and all the suffering that we have. All the suffering we have comes from the illusion of the separate self and from constructs like birth and death, and confusing ourselves with that which we call our physical body. Okay, so give me 15 seconds and we'll be back to non-duality. Thank you for your patience as I was fulfilling my obligation to Facebook for allowing me this privilege to interact with you as one of their influencers. So anyway, now we come to non-duality. Let me try and explain this as simply as I can. So, in order to understand non-duality, let's go very slowly. Okay? So, replace the word object with the word experience. Before we can call something an object, it is an experience. And objects are experiences. Objects are experiences. Because before you can call something an object, whether you call it a book or a hand or a painting or a watch or a statue, before you can call it that, you actually have to experience it. And as experience, it is perception. So all physical objects are perceptual experiences. And all perceptual experiences for us humans are in the form of the five senses: sound, touch, sight, taste, and smell. Take any of these. Let's take sound. Okay? And we know that we can take sound and create a conversation with this sound. We can take sound and we can create music with the sound. And sound is just what we humans call vibrations of the atmosphere. In this case, produced by vibrations of what we call vocal cords. And we have imbued sound with meaning so we can have this conversation. Okay, but we know that sound can be expressed in innumerable conversations, innumerable ideas, innumerable musical tones and melodies. Okay, sound, just sound, as a perceptual experience. But if we go deeper into the nature of sound, we know that sound is an experience in consciousness. In fact, it's a modified form of consciousness. Consciousness knows, because consciousness is the knowing element in every experience. Consciousness knows itself in a mode of knowing that we call sound. And we can experience sound as innumerable conversations, ideas, melodies, tunes, symphonies, rock music, poetry, on and on. Correct? Okay, now let's, ragas. Ramanand Dixit said yes. Okay, I'm going to ignore the phone call and hope somebody else will take it in the other room. Okay, now let's take what we call seeing. Okay, but just take the example of colorless light, photons, which is a human construct, but nevertheless. Just like colorless photons can be experienced as innumerable colors and innumerable shades and tones of colors that can create innumerable paintings. Look at behind me. But it's still the one light. That one light can be all forms, all shapes, all colors, all paintings. Correct? But it's still the one light. Okay? Just like music, melodies, ragas, rock music, symphonies are just sound. So too, innumerable shapes, forms, colors are invisible light. Correct? And seeing is an experience. And that experience is in awareness. In fact, seeing is an activity of awareness. And now we can take any of the other senses. Sensation. Okay, this is a human sensation, not an alligator sensation, not a bird sensation, not an insect sensation. So there are innumerable sensations that create innumerable experiences of what we call solidity. Okay? Taste, smell, innumerable taste and smell in the one awareness. So all taste, all smell, all sensation, all form, all color, all shape, all music are nothing other than modulations of awareness experiencing and knowing itself as sense perceptions. And then, of course, there is the interpretation of this experience, which is called thought. And then there is the liking and disliking of this experience, which is basic pleasure and pain, which ultimately is experienced as innumerable modes of emotion. Likes, dislikes, love, compassion, joy, equanimity, peace, anger, resentment, hostility, fear, guilt, shame, depression. See, all these innumerable emotions are just the modulations of the interpretation of experience. So if we have understood all this way, then we can say the infinite awareness. Why do we say infinite awareness? Because it's dimensionless, therefore it's infinite. It's formless, therefore it's infinite. Has no boundaries. It experiences itself in innumerable modes. In our case, what we call human experience. But then we look at other animals and other sentient beings, whether it's birds or insects, or dolphins, or whales, or alligators, or tigers, or elephants. And of course, we don't realize these are names we gave to modes of human experience. That's it. So all other sentient beings, all other animals are modes of human knowing and perception. Nothing other than that. What about atoms and molecules? Those are also names that we gave, human, to modes of knowing and experience. So, whether it's the taxonomy of biological species or the taxonomy of the periodic table, it doesn't matter. These are names and descriptions, and therefore human constructs, to modes of human experience. To modes of human experience. But the human mode of knowing and experience is a differentiated aspect of innumerable modes of knowing, innumerable modes of perception, innumerable interpretations, innumerable likes, dislikes. The one knower knowing itself in innumerable modes of knowing. and therefore differentiated as innumerable knowers and objects, or actually objects known all within the same awareness. This is what non-duality means. Okay, reality is one, it's singular. Somebody said singularity. Singularity. What about space and time? Well, space is an experience right now. I'm looking around and the space is defined by the perceptions that I call objects in this room. If there were no objects in this room, I would have no experience of space. What about time? Time is also the measurement of experience using the ego body mind as the internal reference point. Okay, so it's a measurement of experience. But if you go beyond the individual ego body mind, which is an activity in the one non-dual awareness, then there is no time. Okay. Space-time, matter, causality, all human constructs around modes of knowing and experience. So, just as a wave in the ocean is water before it becomes a wave, it's water as a wave, it's water as it disappears back into the ocean, so too you are consciousness before you arise as an individual body-mind. You are consciousness as the individual body-mind, and you are consciousness as the individual body-mind. The activity subsides again into the dimensionless, infinite, formless consciousness of being. You do not lose your essence, even as an individual consciousness, because the individual consciousness is still infinite, right? It's just conditioned into certain modes of experience, because infinity cannot be divided or multiplied or any of that. We discussed that yesterday. Okay. Just as water is present in a drop in the ocean, in a puddle, in a pool, in a river, in a glacier, in a raindrop, in a cloud, just assuming different forms, so too you are consciousness assuming innumerable forms, and every form is a phenomenon. Every form is a phenomenon, and every phenomenon is a pattern of behavior of the one consciousness, and you are that. And once we totally understand this, then there's no need actually to be imprisoned by the constructs of birth and death, by the construct of a physical body, or the construct of a mind, or the construct of a universe. We can enjoy the experience and not be bound by it. And this is called moksha and freedom. So Masood says, so why ego? Well, because consciousness, which is one, wants to experience itself as the many. Just like the single zygote that you were at the moment of fertilization expresses itself as many cells, many organs, many tissues, so too consciousness experiences itself as the infinite universe, or even infinite universes. Yoga Vaishishta. Infinite universes come and go in the vast expanse of consciousness, like motes of dust in a beam of light. Okay, so understanding ourselves as non-dual beings, we can be free of the constructs of birth, death, body, mind, universe. That's very freeing. That's very joyful. That's why it's also called Sat Chit Ananda. Sat, truth, Chit, knowing of the nature of awareness, Ananda, eternal bliss, eternal joy. So that was long today, but I hope it was clear. Thank you.